One of the main issues with the original Titanfall was that there wasn't a campaign. There was all this cool stuff you could do with your pilots and your mechs, but there wasn't anywhere that Respawn could really show all that stuff off. If you want to feel like a badass mech pilot catching bullets and then flinging them back at other lumbering machines, you have to do all that stuff in multiplayer. And let's be honest, not everyone is particularly good at multiplayer, are they? So Respawn listened. They listened and they spent 2 years concocting a campaign that's been built specifically to show off all the best bits of Titanfall. Think of it as like a best of a gameplay museum, you know? The guys over at Respawn were in charge of Call of Duty at Infinity Ward before they broke off to form the new studio in 2010, so they've got a decent pedigree when it comes to FPS campaigns. But don't let that fool you. Titanfall 2 has a few things that set it apart from all the other shooters out there. Let's start with how this campaign was made. The single-player lead on the game, Fairfax McCandlish, which is an amazing name, by the way, told us that Respawn was initially concerned about how they'd make a campaign out of Titanfall. The pilot's too mobile, he said. We don't want to cage this bird. So the campaign designers started making what they call action blocks. Little samples of gameplay everyone in the studio would test at lunchtime or in the evenings or whenever they got a moment or two. The staff pointed out which of these blocks were their favourite. There were hundreds to choose from apparently, and the campaign designers began knitting them together to find out what would make the best experience. The result is a game that's so much more than just a go here, shoot this kind of deal. You've got bits of platforming in there, mini fetch quests, and that's not as boring as it sounds in this game, and exploration. It's not exactly open world, but the levels are set up like zones. That's the best way to think about it. So think Halo, mini sandbox areas where you can work your way through at your own pace. Speaking of Halo, the game generally reminded us quite a bit of ODST. Aside from the whole dropping in from orbit thing, you play as a pilot rookie that's got himself way in over his head, who wants to be this big badass pilot dude. Thing is, he's merely a rifleman out on the frontier, or at least that's what he is when we meet him. Jack Cooper may well be just another shouty space marine, but the game is made by his Titan more than anything else. BT-7274, or Betsy as we like to call her, is a bit like Drax from Guardian of the Galaxy. Despite being very blunt and very to the point, the Titan has a well-timed dryness that made us really smile quite a few times. And there aren't too many FPS narrative like campaign bits out there that make us do that. There's also some nice dialogue-based choice mechanic stuff that seems totally superficial, but lets you personalise the sort of relationship you want to have with your Titan. So you can play it all hurly-burly military guy, or you can be more pally with it, have a bit of fun. The choices you make seem to have very little bearing on how the game actually plays out, but it's nice you've got that choice in how to grow this symbiotic relationship with a Titan. You meet Betsy, the Vanguard class Titan, after its former pilot hands over control to you. This captain had taken you under his proverbial wing, trying to teach you the ways of pilothood, I guess. He saw something in you and was sherping you through what was supposed to be a pretty standard mission, Operation Broadsword, before it all went tits up and you got attacked. That's where the game really starts then, and that's where you start to meet the baddies. The baddies have all their own Titans, and knowing that as you build up to their fights makes everything that much more exciting. We can't reveal much more here, but honestly, these little boss encounters look like the best bit of the game, and they've all got so much personality as well. Mixture of a Titan and a baddie with a personality, it's a great encounter. Respawn told us that they spent 2 years building a campaign that celebrated the size differential in the characters you play as, and despite only releasing an hour of what's on offer, you can tell that has been the hardcore focus. We look forward to seeing more of the game when it releases on PS4 and Xbox One on October 28th.